Hi, everyone. It's Christopher, Mono County Library Director and co-host of the Oxygen Starved podcast. It's Book Talk Friday, and this week I have two great novels picked out. You know, it's been 30 years since Amy Tan published The Joy Luck Club and became both by talent and by default the preeminent Asian American novelist in the years to follow. But here in the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen a long overdue explosion in Asian and Asian American writers, with Celeste Ng, Lisa See, Kevin Kwan, Viet Thanh Nguyen, and others hitting the bestseller lists, winning awards, and seeing their film adaptations of their work. So this week I've chosen two books written by novelists with roots in Vietnam. And I'll start with The Fortunes of Jaded Women by Carolyn Nguyen. It's a first novel that came out last month to great reviews and was a Good Morning America book club pick. This is a multi-generational saga told from the points of view of a Vietnamese grandmother living in Southern California, her three middle-aged daughters, and their grown estranged daughters from a family that had been cursed by a witch decades before to only bear girls, which practically makes them outcasts in Vietnamese culture. The book kicks off with learning about this curse with the phrase, "There was nothing wrong with having Vietnamese daughters. It was how the world treated them that turned it into a curse." Next, years later, one of the estranged middle-aged daughters consults a psychic, learning that in the coming year, their family will experience a death, a marriage, and the birth of a son for the first time in generations. Instructed to mend her relationships with her family, the story propels through a series of hijinks amongst the group, none of whom seem to be on speaking terms with the others. It rivals the plot of Dynasty, complete with a hilarious catfight scene. That said, the people in this romp are presented with humor, love, and compassion, walking the fine line between the larger-than-life characters that make Kevin Kwan novels so much fun and the sensitive, long-standing cultural pressures American children of immigrants often face as old-world traditions compete with American norms. Described by Nguyen as a novel that captures Vietnamese-American joy, I won't give away more other than to say it's fun, it's over before you want it to be, and you won't be disappointed. Now, my slightly older pick for this week is The Mountain Sing, the first English language novel by Nguyen Phan Quay Mai. It came out in early 2020. It's told in the voices of a grandmother and her granddaughter, nicknamed Guava, and based somewhat on the author's own family's experience in the north of Vietnam, from the French and Japanese occupations through the rise of communism in the 1950s, and of course the Vietnam War and continued civil wars after. In the story, which starts in the modern day with Guava trying to piece together her grandmother's stories to kind of better understand their family's past, she flashes back. Her grandmother had endured terrible tragedy during the brutal land reforms of the mid-20th century, horrific events she was forbidden to talk about during the government's attempt to snuff out any dissenting voices in its historical narrative. But by the time she became the guardian of her granddaughter in the early 1970s, the rest of the family dead or lost to her as the Vietnam War raged around them, she no longer feels the need to keep those secrets, relaying epic stories of war and famine and the communist tendency to turn neighbor against neighbor, flight, hunger, the forced abandonment of those she loved the most. There is a current in this novel, one of memory as history rather than textbooks as history, partially because it's a period so close and so fraught even today in Vietnam that it is rarely written about openly. The author herself says she chose to write this novel in English as a measure of distance from the difficult issues it sheds light on. She also says her intent was to show a color and complexity of Vietnam most Westerners wouldn't have known about because the Vietnam War is our only exposure to that country. It is Mai's attempt as a Vietnamese poet and writer to confirm the common humanity of the people around the world, regardless of who you are. It's a moving and beautiful book that came out to rave reviews, and I just learned Mai has a new book, Dust Child, coming next spring. You can find The Mountain Sing, as well as The Fortunes of Jaded Women at Mono County Libraries, as well as a number of other great books. Come in and grab these or another great read. In the meantime, stay safe and happy reading.